You have to understand the relationship first. It wasn't just a manager and a star. It was something else entirely. On one side, you had the most famous man in the world. A man with a voice that could make you feel joy and heartbreak in the same breath. A man who, by 1968, was trapped. He was a king in a cage made of movie scripts and bad songs. He was rich, he was adored, and he was deeply, profoundly bored. He was losing himself. On the other side, you had the Colonel. Colonel Tom Parker. He wasn't a real colonel, of course. He wasn't even Tom Parker. He was an illegal immigrant from the Netherlands with a past he never, ever talked about. He was a carnival barker at heart, a master salesman. He didn't manage a person. He managed a product. And the product's name was Elvis Presley. The Colonel's job, as he saw it, was to protect the brand. Keep it safe, keep it profitable, keep it simple, don't make waves, don't offend anyone. Just sell to everyone. From the kids in the north to the grandmothers in the deep south. The brand had to be universal, had to be clean, and in 1968, America was not clean. It was a mess. The country felt like it was tearing itself apart. The Vietnam War was raging, splitting families in a generation. In April, Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated in Memphis, Elvis's hometown. The city's burned. The grief was immense. Just 2 months later, in June, Robert F. Kennedy was shot and killed after winning the California primary. Hope itself seemed to be dying. The air was thick with anger and sorrow. Meanwhile, Elvis was making movies like Clambake. He was singing songs about puppet shows and beach parties, the world was on fire, and he was being handed a ukulele. He saw what was happening, he watched the news, he felt the pain. He was a deeply spiritual person, a man who read books on religion and philosophy endlessly. He wasn't the simple country boy. The Colonel sold to the world. He was complicated, and he felt useless. The music that was defining the era, the music of Bob Dylan, of the Beatles, of Motown, it all had something to say. His music, at that point, said nothing. This is the backdrop for the moment that changed everything. A television special. The Colonel had booked it. It was supposed to be a nice, safe Christmas show. Elvis would come out, sing some old hits, croon a few Christmas carols, and wish everyone a Merry Christmas. The sponsor, Singer Sewing Machines, would be happy. The network would be happy. The Colonel would be happy. It was just another piece of product, another transaction. But the director hired for the show, a young man named Steve Binder, saw something else. He saw the fire that was still in Elvis. He saw the caged animal. Binder's goal wasn't to present the safe movie star Elvis. He wanted to reintroduce the world to the dangerous, raw, and powerful Elvis. The Elvis that had changed music in the first place. Binder and Elvis hit it off. They would talk for hours after rehearsals. They talked about music, about life, about the state of the world. Elvis was opening up. He was expressing his frustration, his despair over the assassinations, his desire to do something that mattered. He wasn't a politician, he was a singer, but he felt like his voice, the most powerful tool he had, was being wasted. The plan for the show's big finale was, of course, a Christmas song. The Colonel insisted on it. Something warm and fuzzy. I'll Be Home for Christmas was the choice. It was safe there. It was familiar, it was exactly what the Colonel wanted, but Binder and Elvis felt it was a complete letdown. It didn't fit the raw energy of the rest of the show they were building. It felt like a retreat. It's a surrender. One evening, after a long day, Elvis, Binder, and the show's musical director, W. Earl Brown, were talking. The conversation turned again to the state of the country, to the loss of Dr. King and Senator Kennedy. Elvis was visibly moved. He spoke with a passion that surprised everyone. He talked about his own hopes for a better world, for people to understand each other. He said things like, I want to do a song I can believe in. I want to say something. Earl Brown listened. He saw the sincerity in Elvis's eyes. He saw the man, not the icon. Inspired by that conversation and by the words of Martin Luther King Jr.'s famous speech, Brown went home that night. He didn't sleep. He wrote. He channeled all of Elvis's frustration, all of his hope, all of the country's pain into a piece of music. He wrote a song that was part gospel, part plea, part anthem. The lyrics were about a world filled with trouble, a world where he was lost. But they were also about a belief, a dream of a better place. A place where a man could walk free and safe. A place of peace and understanding. A place where the wind could blow the clouds of doubt away. It was a prayer set to music. The next day, Earl Brown played it for Elvis. Elvis listened intently. When it was over, he stood up and said, "That's it. That's the song. I'm doing it." He also said something that would define the rest of his career. For better or worse, I'm never going to sing another song I don't believe in. For that one moment, the artist had taken over from the product. He went into the studio to record it. The performance he gave was unlike anything he had done in years. It wasn't just singing. He was testifying. He poured every ounce of his pain, his hope, his soul into that microphone. The session musicians were stunned. They had tears in their eyes. They knew they were witnessing something special. This wasn't the movie Elvis, this was the real man, laying his heart bare. Now you have to picture the Colonel hearing this song for the first time. He didn't hear a beautiful anthem of hope, he heard a cash register grinding to a halt. He heard danger, he hit the roof. What is this? He must have yelled. This is not an Elvis Presley song. And from his point of view, he was right. An Elvis Presley song, as defined by the Colonel, was about love, or girls, or dancing, or blue suede shoes. It was fun, it was escapism, it was not, under any circumstances, supposed to be about the state of the world. The Colonel's objections were clear, and they were all about business. First, the song was political. It didn't matter that its message was one of unity and peace. In the supercharged atmosphere of 1968, any statement was a political statement. To sing about a dream of brotherhood so soon after the death of the man who gave the "I have a dream" speech was to take a side. And the Colonel's number one rule was Elvis doesn't take sides. Sides mean you alienate the other half of the customers. Second, the brand's core audience was in the South. A song that so clearly echoed the message of the civil rights movement was a massive risk. It could be seen as a betrayal by the very people who had made him a star. The Colonel imagined canceled records, radio boycotts, empty concert seats. He saw his carefully constructed, universally appealing brand being tarnished by controversy. In his mind, this was commercial suicide. Third, and perhaps most importantly, it was about control. The song wasn't his idea, it came from a conversation between Elvis and the creative team. It was born from Elvis's own feelings and beliefs. If Elvis started making artistic choices based on his conscience, where would it end? The Colonel's power came from keeping Elvis in a creative box. A box where the Colonel chose the songs, the scripts, the entire direction. This song was a direct challenge to that control. It was Elvis saying, I have a voice and I want to use it. And to the Colonel, that was the most dangerous idea of all. The confrontation was epic. The Colonel came to the set and demanded the song be cut from the show. He wanted the safe Christmas song back in the finale. He told Elvis it was a career ender. He probably threatened, he cajoled, he tried every trick he knew. Steve Binder stood up to him. But the final decision rested with Elvis. And in one of the very few times in their long, complicated relationship, Elvis stood his ground. He looked the Colonel in the eye and said, essentially, we're doing the song. It was a quiet rebellion, but it was a rebellion nonetheless. Elvis chose the art over the commerce. He chose to say something over staying silent. The Colonel, faced with losing the star of the show, had to back down. He lost the battle. The TV special aired in December 1968. Elvis, dressed in a now iconic white suit, stood alone on the stage in front of his name in giant red letters. He closed his eyes and he sang the song. The performance was electric. It was raw, emotional, and utterly compelling. You could see the conviction in his face. He wasn't acting, he was feeling every single word. The final notes, where his voice soars with desperate hope, were breathtaking. The nation was watching, and they were mesmerized. The show was a monumental success. It wasn't just a comeback, it was a resurrection. Elvis was no longer a joke from Hollywood. He was relevant again. He was an artist, and the song, the one the Colonel tried to kill, was a massive hit. It connected with people deeply. In a year of darkness, it was a small candle of hope. So, here is the strange part. The song was a huge success. It made millions. It revitalized the brand. It proved the Colonel wrong in every way. You would think he would have embraced it. You would think he would have said, great job, my boy, let's do more like that. He did the exact opposite. Once the show was a success and the single was climbing the charts, the Colonel laid down the law. It was an unspoken rule, but a firm one. Elvis was never to talk about the song in public. He was never to discuss what it meant, what inspired it, or why he fought to sing it. Why? Why forbid him from discussing one of his greatest triumphs? Because the Colonel had lost the battle, but he was determined to win the war. The war was for control of the Elvis Presley brand. His logic was cold and calculated. First, plausible deniability. If Elvis never publicly confirmed the link to Martin Luther King Jr., then people could interpret the song however they wanted. To a listener in New York, it could be about civil rights. To a listener in Mississippi, it could just be a beautiful gospel song about a heavenly dream. By keeping the meaning vague, you keep the product acceptable to the widest possible audience. Don't explain it. Don't define it. Just sell it. The Colonel managed to retroactively sand down its sharp political edges. Second, it was about reasserting his authority. By forbidding Elvis from talking about his own artistic statement, the Colonel was sending a clear message: you had your moment of rebellion. It worked out. Lucky for you. But it's over now. I am still in charge. It was a psychological power play. He was taking Elvis's victory and locking it in a box. It became a product to be sold. not a message to be discussed. It was a way of putting Elvis back in his place. Third, and most importantly, it was about preventing a precedent. The Colonel saw the '68 special not as a new artistic direction, but as a relaunch. A relaunch of the old business model. The goal was to get Elvis back on stage, making money. The last thing the Colonel wanted was an aware Elvis who wanted to sing protest songs or make political statements. That was unpredictable. That was hard to manage. That was bad for business. His dream for Elvis wasn't a world of brotherhood. It was a long-term contract at the International Hotel in Las Vegas. So the command came down. Don't talk about it. Let the song exist. Let it sell, but sever it from its roots. Pretend it just appeared out of thin air, a lovely song with no specific context. And Elvis, for the most part, obeyed. He was back under the Colonel's thumb. The fire of the comeback special slowly faded, replaced by the glitz and routine of Vegas. He got the jumpsuits, the big orchestra, the adoring crowds. He was back in a different kind of cage, a bigger and more comfortable one, but a cage nonetheless. The promise of that one song, the promise of an artist using his voice to engage with the world, was never fully realized again. He sang beautiful songs, he gave incredible performances, but that specific spark of relevance, that desire to speak to the times, was carefully managed and suppressed. The Colonel won. He got his product back on the assembly line, he steered the ship away from the dangerous waters of social commentary and back into the safe, profitable harbor of pure entertainment. The order to never discuss the song's meaning was the final turn of the key in the lock. It was a command to forget the rebellion, to forget the moment the artist broke free, and to remember who was boss. It was a command to let the dream remain just a dream, a beautiful, marketable product instead of a living, breathing conviction. And that song, the one he poured his entire soul into, the one that resurrected his career and gave a voice to a nation's heartache, was called If I Can Dream.